I'm a 19-year-old guy who's been without a dad since I was 6. My dad wasn't really around much, even when he and my mom were together. Things went south when mom discovered he was having an affair. Turns out, the woman he was involved with was under the impression she'd end up raising a child with him, given her infertility issues. So, my dad had the audacity to suggest to my mom that he could take me off her hands to raise with his mistress, sweetening the deal with a monthly payment. Mom's response? A firm no. I only got wind of these details over the past few years. Mom chose to shield me from this drama, not wanting to add to the resentment I felt towards him for his absence. In hindsight, I'm grateful she waited. I was already harboring enough anger. Despite my dad's absence, his parents stayed in my life. They kept in touch with him, though not frequently. He eventually married his mistress. They attempted adoption but hit roadblocks. And then, surprisingly, she got pregnant. Tragically, my dad passed away from a massive heart attack right after his daughter, my half-sister, was born. His lifestyle choices made his early departure somewhat expected. Fast forward 4 months ago. His wife dies suddenly, leaving their young daughter parentless. My grandparents stepped in as her legal guardians. I've never met this half-sister of mine, and frankly, I don't see her as family. Family, to me, isn't just about blood. My grandparents, however, have reached out for help. They're feeling the weight of their years and suggested I could play with her or babysit during their medical appointments. I declined, suggesting they hire a professional babysitter instead. They argued that having a big brother figure could be beneficial for her, but I stood my ground, causing some tension. They tried to appeal to my better nature, reminding me of the effort they've made to compensate for my dad's shortcomings, and suggesting I could play a positive role in my half-sister's life. They emphasized her innocence in all this, questioning why I'd want to extend the cycle of absence and neglect. Their persistence made me uncomfortable, hinting that I was becoming like my dad, a notion I strongly reject. I'm not responsible for her, and it's unfair to suggest otherwise. It's clear they hope I'll eventually take on a guardianship role, which I find an unfair expectation to place on me. Despite their intentions, I believe in setting boundaries, especially given the complicated family dynamics. It seems they're also reaching out to my mom, perhaps hoping she'll form a connection with the child as well. So, my dad, or as I see it, the guy who couldn't care less about the people he's supposed to, leaves me wondering, am I wrong here? Not at all. Just because she's an innocent kid doesn't mean she's my responsibility. Sure, it's not her fault her dad was a piece of work, just like it's not on me. But I shouldn't have to pick up his slack just because he's no longer around. It's totally unfair to try and make me feel guilty comparing my situation to my dad bailing out. But it's clear this is messing with my relationship with my grandparents. They're pretty set on the idea that I owe something to this girl, that I owe them. Basically, my grandparents are hinting I should step up and be a better father figure to her than my dad ever was to me. But here's the thing, I don't owe her anything. I'm not her dad. I haven't wronged anyone, especially someone I've never even met. They're laying the groundwork, hoping I'll step in if anything happens to them. That's a massive expectation to dump on me. My grandparents are getting on in years, and they're thinking ahead, maybe 14 or 15 years down the line. They want me to get close to her, hoping I'll take over if needed. I'm setting my boundaries clear as day, and given what my dad was like, they should get why. They're probably trying to build a bridge between us, so if anything happens, either I or maybe even my mom would take over looking after my half-sister. And yeah, they did reach out to my mom, asking if she'd like to meet her granddaughter. That caught me off guard, but now it clicks. Mom was puzzled too, but guessed it's because they're still on decent terms post-divorce. Thanks for the advice. Switching gears, my fiancé, a 35-year-old guy, just proposed with a sterling silver ring he picked up from Walmart while getting his nephew a party costume. He even handed me the receipt, suggesting I could swap it out if it wasn't to my taste. We both earn well, yet he chose a ring that costs less than 2 hours of his wage after taxes. And for his birthday. So, my dad, a guy who didn't really bother with us, left me questioning, am I being unreasonable? Just because my half-sister didn't ask for any of this drama doesn't mean I have to step up. It's not her fault her dad wasn't the best, but that doesn't automatically make her my responsibility. My dad's gone, and somehow I'm being nudged to fill his shoes. That's not on me. And when folks try to make me feel bad by comparing me to my dad for saying no, that's just not right. But here's the twist. This whole situation is straining things with my grandparents. They've pretty much laid it out that they think I owe it to this girl, to them even. They're painting this picture where I'm the hero who steps up, doing better than my dad ever did. But here's the deal. I don't owe her anything. I'm not her dad. I haven't let anyone down, especially someone I've never even met. They're laying it thick, hoping I'll be there to pick up the pieces if they can't. But that's a heavy ask, isn't it? My grandparents get it. They're not getting any younger. They might not be around in the next decade or so, and they want me to be ready to take over. They're drawing this line, hoping to connect me with her, so if anything happens, maybe I, or even my mom, would step up. But setting boundaries here feels right, especially given the whole backstory. They're likely hoping for a connection, so there's a safety net for my half-sister. And about my mom getting involved. Didn't see that coming. They actually asked her if she wanted to meet her granddaughter. That got me thinking, why now? Mom's as puzzled as I am but figures it's because they've been okay since the split. Thanks for the perspective. Switching gears, my fiancé, who's doing well for himself, decided a Walmart sterling silver ring was proposal material. He even tossed in the receipt, like it was any other purchase. We both make decent money, yet he spent what feels like minutes of his wage on this ring. And I went all out for his birthday, spending way more. I told him straight up, a ring pop would have been less insulting. And what does he do? Gets me a ring pop the next day. No effort to figure out what I like, just straight to calling me out for being upset over the ring. Am I wrong for expecting a bit more thought in a ring I'll wear forever? It's a bit of a mess. On one hand, he could have at least tried to find something I'd like instead of labeling me that kind of girl. Who wants to marry someone who doesn't get why you'd be upset over a thoughtless gift? But let's be real. The whole mega expensive engagement ring expectation has gotten out of hand. A simple ring is fine if it's your style. But here's the thing. If he's spending big on gadgets and gives me a Walmart ring, that's not about money. It's about effort, or the lack of it. Feels almost like a joke, or a test. And why test me if we're supposed to spend our lives together? It's almost like he's setting up a scenario where I'm the bad guy for expecting a little effort. Sounds like a trap, honestly. About my niece, who's practically my daughter, her gymnastics dream is costing a fortune. Her coach saw potential early on, and my wife and I got caught up in the Olympic dream. I've been cautious, knowing the odds and costs, but we've been supporting her all the way, with the gym even chipping in. It's a big commitment, but it's all about supporting her dreams, right? I've been the main guy in my niece's life since she was just a little kid, stepping in when her mom couldn't cut it as a parent. My wife and I, we've raised her like she's our own, alongside our two boys. Now, my niece, she's got a real knack for gymnastics, been at it for a decade. A while back, one of her coaches spotted her talent and even hinted she could go pro, maybe even hit the Olympics someday. My wife was all in, dreaming big for her. I was more on the fence, aware of both the slim chances and the hefty price tag on chasing such dreams. But her gym was supportive, chipping in for her training costs, which eased my mind a bit. Training in gymnastics isn't child's play. It's intense and demanding. I was on board as long as it made my niece happy and didn't overshadow everything else in her life. But then, she injured her during practice. Sure, insurance took care of the bills, but seeing her in so much pain, doubting when she could return to the gym, it hit me hard. I told my wife I didn't think it was worth it anymore. The risk, the toll on her body, it just didn't seem right. My wife, though, she insisted we couldn't just call the shots without considering what my niece wanted. I argued that as the adult, and her legal guardian, it was my call to make. But when I tried to explain that my guardianship made me responsible for these decisions, my wife felt like I was sidelining her role in our niece's life. To set things straight, my initial chat about pulling my niece from gymnastics was just between my wife and me. We hadn't brought our niece into the conversation yet. My stance sparked a bit of a household debate. Was I overstepping by wanting to protect her from further harm, Or was I just not seeing the full picture? The feedback was loud and clear. I might be acting a bit single-minded here. My wife's been in the trenches with me, raising our niece, doing everything from dinner, practice runs, to the tough talks. To act like I've got the final say, well, it doesn't sit right. It's a joint effort, a partnership, and she deserves as much say in this as I do. We need to sit down, all three of us, and maybe talk to some real sports professionals. Not just the local gym coach, but someone who knows the ins and outs of recovering from injuries like this. They could give us a clearer picture of what's possible for her future in gymnastics. Making a decision like this shouldn't be a solo mission. It's about what's best for her, with input from everyone who loves and supports her. My boy, Dwan, is grappling with some real heavy stuff lately, deep in the trenches of 6th grade and all its glories and horrors. On top of that, he's got to stand up in court and deliver a victim impact statement, something that's been eating at him all week. It's been rough. He's been bunking with me for months now, trying to find some peace before facing the day. Now, throw in a curveball, an oral report for his social studies class due on Friday. But here's the catch: he can't do it. He's got to be in court, a place no kid wants to be on any day, let alone a school day. I reached out to his teacher, Mrs. T, explaining he's got an unavoidable appointment on Friday and floated the idea of him presenting his report on Monday instead. Doing her due diligence, wondered why not Thursday? I get it, totally fair. But I had to lay it out. Dwan's not just nervous, he's carrying a mountain of emotional turmoil. The last thing he needs is to break down in front of his classmates. Wasn't buying the jitters as a valid excuse. Offering a stark choice, present Thursday or Friday, or take a 0. I chose the 0. Because, let's be real, his mental well-being trumps a grade on any day. By surprise. I'm usually the dad who's all in, but I had to stand firm, even if it meant Dwan taking a hit grade-wise. Later, the vice principal rings me up, hinting at a so-called hostile exchange with Mrs. and my 0 request. I clarified, slipping in the real reason off the record: Dwan's court appearance. The understanding the gravity, offered to smooth things over with the teachers. Yet, I insisted on privacy. This wasn't everyone's news to share. Later reaching out, expressed concern for Dwan, wishing I'd been more open. But given her reputation, and that of her son, as the grade's leading gossip mongers, I wasn't about to spill our lives for the school grapevine. She found my reticence hurtful, but hey, when you're fishing for info, you can't be surprised when someone calls you out on it. They handled it discreetly, marking Dwan's absence as approved and sending work home. Only Mrs. seemed to push for more details post-email, proving my point. I stood my ground for my son's sake, navigating the tricky waters of privacy, school policy, and a father's instinct to protect his kid's heart above all else. Diving straight into the heart of the matter, there's really no need for every nitty-gritty detail to be laid out on the table, especially when it comes to explaining your son's absence from school. Even if Mrs. T wasn't known for spreading news faster than wildfire, she isn't entitled to every piece of your family's private business. The bottom line is, you've informed her of a legitimate reason for your son's absence, which should suffice. Teachers aren't in the business of prying. Their role is to educate and accommodate reasonable requests from parents without turning it into an interrogation. On the flip side, it seems like Mrs. T might be stepping out of line, aiming to squeeze out more info than necessary. Why else would she escalate things to the vice principal if not to flex a bit of power and perhaps retaliate for not getting the scoop she was after? But let's not jump to conclusions too hastily. While some might think all you needed to do was give a heads up about your son's court date and his anxiety, not everyone feels comfortable sharing even that much. Sure, teachers aren't mind readers, and yes, they deal with more than their fair share of excuses, but a bit of trust goes a long way. Switching gears to a completely different scene: our dinner party debacle. Coming from a culture where kids dine just like the adults, just with smaller, more manageable portions, it was a shock to see our approach to mealtime cause such a stir. We did our homework, asking about dietary restrictions or allergies, ensuring everyone would be comfortable with the meal served. Yet, when it came time to eat, confusion ensued, particularly with Lena and Leon, who expected a completely different menu for the kids, thinking along the lines of nuggets, pizza, or pasta with ketchup. Their reaction, to say the least, was unexpected, leading to a McDonald's run and a rather pointed critique about adapting to local customs. It was a tough pill to swallow, feeling like we'd somehow failed as hosts. However, the consensus among our other friends and my husband was clear. It was a matter of parenting style and expectations, not a lapse in hospitality on our part. After all, in Germany, the concept of kids' food isn't a thing. Food is food, and the idea is to encourage a broad palate from a young age. Reflecting on the experience, it's clear that while we aim to be accommodating, it's also essential for guests to communicate their needs or preferences. As for the critique about adapting or the suggestion that our approach was somehow lacking, it's a reminder that cultural differences can be vast, but at the dinner table, openness and respect go a long way. And maybe, just maybe, next time, a quick heads up about dining preferences can prevent a repeat of this culinary misadventure.